being of the UK, you don't necessarily have the white supremacy American experience, and here we are in America talking about white supremacy. So that's the thing I'm here to talk about. You want to correct the dialogue, I'm there to go, because to me,
so basically, Eric, what you're saying is I can't talk about my lip gloss. That's basically what you corrected me by saying. Lip gloss is off the radar. Fine.
Oh, well, I apologize. It's not my intention to do that, but I don't have red hair, so I can't speak to your hair color.
No, it's fine. It's fine. No, we're going to do it. So you rightly said. So I've got. I'll do a little thing. There's always a little bit of a delay, so people will join if they have time. So yeah, you're absolutely right. Like, I don't even know where to start with this, but I think because I genuinely want to kind of get into the conversation and leave you and Matt together and the three of us just to kind of like talk and try and rationalize what feels like really irrational right about now. But this whole conversation about white supremacy, and it's quite interesting here in the UK because there's still a lot of white people who are still quite emotionally reacting to the term. They don't like it. So when we say white supremacy, do you remember that film, Is it American X?
History
do you remember that film?
Yeah.
History. Do you remember? Yeah.
One of the most excruciating scenes in all of movies.
Right. Do you remember
the curb?
Yeah, I can't. I maybe watched it one time, but when you say white supremacists, right, everyone thinks like we have like the National Front, so it's all like skinheads, and it's all like
the right wing.
Yes, right. So we have this. We've always had this connotation when you talk about white supremacy. Now, in context of race and racism and anti-racism and all of these things, so when you say to people like, we live in a white supremacist world, they're like, I'm not, that's not, and you can't even get the conversation beyond that. So that's why I was super gratified for lots of different reasons, obviously. But one, to be able to talk about it in a way that pushes past this whole instinctive defensive reaction, right? And hopefully you guys can help lead the way a little bit into just having other white men even talk about this, because look how far I had to go to have the conversation. I had to like clear get a flight. Do you know what I mean? To come and find two people who were just willing to just kind of have this conversation. Look how far I'm going to find.
Well, so you'll go to any lengths. I think you've established that. For me, since we're on the record in public and live, I want anyone listening or yourself or Matt to know that I'm participating here not because of guilt or responsibility or a liberal passion. I'm here because I'm ready to love and trust people that I don't know very well. And there's a barrier between that love and trust. That I grew up in a integrated community in Oakland, and I had friends who were other than me most of my life. And as an adult, my path went one way and my friends' paths didn't. They weren't on the same path as me. So it was very glaring. Why am I no longer friends with? There was no activity that said we're no longer able to be friends. It's just that our life experiences took us in different places at different paces. And so I'm here simply because I want to work on restoring, sharing that white privilege, talking about white supremacy, and doing it from a place of love and trust, not from a place of guilt or morality or any of that. I'm happy to go into all that because I feel those things, but my driver, my motive is to establish more love, more trust.
Love it. Love that. What about you, Matt? What made you say yes when I was like, hey, Matt, how do you feel?
I mean, I told you when I talked to you, I'm happy to have this conversation anytime. It doesn't even have to be a topic. Let's just,
Well, we did, didn't we? We
talk
did.
to Shereen. It's fun. I love talking to you.
Thank you, guys.
I don't feel guilt about it, but I think it's important to talk about it from the different perspectives. And we've talked about this before. It's more about talking from the middle for any conversation, because right now I'm generally engaged here. And if other people are engaged here saying the same thing, and it's a much different conversation. Right. And we can all agree that we're on the same team. Everyone can agree that racism exists, that it's wrong, but how do we fix it? What can we do? And instead of talking to the same people who agree and feel the same way you do, try and bring the people who don't feel that way to try and understand why they think it's okay, how they got to that point, and what do we have to do to get past it? I personally don't feel guilt about anything. I've had a lot of privilege in my life. I like to call it privilege and not white privilege. I think there's a difference between the two. The same as I think there's a difference between being racist and being a white supremacist. I'm sure possibly, you've experienced both, and they're both just as frightening. But it's, there's an underlying issue, and I love to talk about it with people who disagree with me more than the people who agree with me, because we can agree all day long. It's, I don't know who that's going to help, although maybe it will. And if it helps one person,
well, I'm imperfect and I'm racist. I'm working on it every day, but I'm not a white supremacist.
All right.
So to your point,
we can get into some of that. Yeah. And I guess just before we even launch into the whole thing, because I do want, just for context, because like some of my British friends will be thinking like, Matt and Erik, like, where the hell are they in the US with these? So I'm going to make you guys literally, because you've got to, right? You've got to pinpoint on the map where you're from. So we got to just we'll get that off the table. But what I will say is that when Matt and I first spoke, right? And I think, what did we talk for, like 40 minutes, maybe?
Yeah,
like
roughly.
Give or take. Yeah, about 40 minutes, give or take. And at the end of the call, I said to Matt, and I was like, do you know what, Matt? I really enjoyed, which I did genuinely, obviously. I enjoyed talking to him. And what I really liked, though, is the fact that I didn't agree with everything that he said, like, respectfully. We weren't like, it wasn't from that point of view. But your perspectives were quite different than my perspectives. And it goes back to this point of what you're saying is that we can all be pushing in the same direction, but not everybody will come at it thinking in exactly the same way. And just because it's different, and I was like, oh, Matt, no, and you were like, well, doesn't make it wrong, right? Oh, look, and Erik's just had enough, so he's like, he will come back. Yeah, he will come back.
No, but the
you know what I mean? And that's what I really like.
Yeah, the issue that I see also is I just talked about this the other day. I go on a lot of podcasts now, and essentially, no matter what I say, they're all agreeing with me. And I want someone to disagree with me.
Well, I disagree with you pretty strongly.
I was like, well, I wouldn't quite say that. And he was like, and that's what I genuinely, because it wasn't antagonistic. It was just, we just disagreed.
Yeah, we're going to.
And that's what I thought was really important. And it just so happens that we had this conversation, you as a white American cisgender male, me as a black woman, then we've got Erik, and I'll let you both tell your stories, but I just thought there's something quite powerful in just even not only the cross-Atlantic piece, but the fact that reality is the three of us are doing, happy and willing, for lots of different reasons, coming at it from lots of different angles, to do what society cannot do right about now, which is get people in a room, do you know what I mean, and to talk about the real issues, not dance around the subject, not hide, when we're talking about racism and, all the different elements of discrimination and intolerance and white supremacy, because, it's easy for me to talk like that about that with other black people because we're sat here, and it's easy for me to talk to people who are supporters and allies, if you want to use that word, right? But as we know, the white male has had some particular challenges lofted, right? So for me, even to be able to bridge that conversation is like damn near impossible, because everybody wants to have the safe conversation about diversity and inclusion. And I'm like, listen, my friends, I am not talking about diversity and inclusion. I am talking about racism. I'm talking about anti-racism. I'm talking about anti-black racism. But I'm talking about it because until we get honesty there, then it doesn't matter all the great ideas that we have to move forward. We're never going to, we'll be in the same place as before because we all feel really uncomfortable to talk about it, right?
Yeah, so even think about today. I don't know if you heard the news about the Breonna Taylor thing. Very confusing to me because to my knowledge, the officers are not arrested, but they've come to some financial agreement that also involves some change stuff. And everyone's going to be like, well, that's a great big win. And maybe it's not going to push stuff forward. So, it's those conversations, like you said, to really figure out what's going on underneath it. All this stuff that people are doing is great. In the NFL, Eric Reed blasted the NFL on Twitter for just kind of doing a PR stunt. And it's like, okay, if you protested for one day, protests for the season. They talked about sitting it out. And I don't know what that's going to accomplish, because I don't know if it's going to accomplish a change, but I do know that everything for me comes back to there has to be a deterrent for bad behavior. And that doesn't matter if it's racism, if it's theft, whatever it is, because people will keep doing what they can get away with.
The problem is it's not just behavior, it's a system.
Right.
And so I understand that sports to you matters a lot. And so to you, that value of it has to mean something would matter a lot to me. It doesn't mean anything to me. Copernicus kneeling probably is what started my separation between Facebook contacts and family. And so
We've
the
all been
idea,
there.
yeah, and so they're not there anymore. Those folks who think that was a bad action aren't a part of my bubble anymore, which is neither good nor bad. It's just reality. So you can tell people by whether they support that kneel in California. I'm in Northern California, 70 minutes north of San Francisco, very privileged, very non-African American community. And the white community up here thinks it's diverse because there are Hispanic, Latinx workers in the background that they're not integrated with. They shop in their own markets, they do their own thing, they live here because they have to run the wineries and the agriculture, but there's no interaction whatsoever. And it's a very, very big railroad divide. Like you go somewhere in the south of the United States, you'll see one community living on one side of the railroad, same over here, except our little pockets are you go from mansion to apartment with 500 people living in it. And so we live in a starkly racist place where it's not integrated, and everybody thinks that it is. We're diverse and we're California, so we have our own challenges. We have our own realities that people won't face here. They will not face that this is not a diverse town. And we just had a woman step down as a result of marches for George Floyd's murder. She made uncouth, this is an older white woman, progressive. She made uncouth statements. And in our very privileged, mostly white town, 600 to 700 youth marched on the town. She stepped down after several weeks of criticism and more uncouth comments. And the city appointed a Latinx queer council member.
Right.
So you tell me, is this period of time, the pandemic, everything else, this is a time to address systemic change, not look for punishment. But to me, where I see it is we have an opportunity to make systemic changes at deep social levels that we will not have again for 20 years, maybe, or until the next big thing.
My opinion is that the punishment or the deterrent is going to help change the systemic stuff, because the people who have to change the systemic stuff are the people who are the cause of it. And they're the ones who've just gone on with it because that's the way it's always been.
Yeah, but we're white, we make the rules. We make the rules. So we'll just change the rules to avoid the punishment. We always do that.
Well, the people who make the rules, I don't know. It's the whole good old boy network.
Well, we're compared to many others, we're the good old boys.
Like you and I?
Yeah. You're a CEO. I'm a CEO. You're gonna. I know we're gonna disagree on it, but
I'm a CEO of a one-man company. I write the rules.
Yeah.
So if I was doing wrong, then people would call me out on it, and it would suffer. I'd have the consequences of it, possibly.
Yeah.
Possibly. But I think and like I hear what you're saying, Matt, about there's got to be consequence, but I think to some extent, that's the distinction about talking about racism from the behavioral point of view, because you're right. What is accepted is legitimized. And if it's legitimized, then it will continue going. Just like, before we started, we talked about the baseball example of the commentator and the guy. And I think what I see within business, and I guess you can magnify that to society, is we probably have two challenges. And I think one is, historically, we have seen senior individuals, people with influence, power, and all of the things that we know, hold views, stereotypes, prejudice on a scale, right, going to downright racism and who, because of the backdrop of white being the majority, that never gets challenged to the extent that nothing ever changes. So occasionally you hear about somebody having to step down, somebody resigning because, publicity is so bad. Do you know what I mean? That the PR people are like, shit, Do you know what I mean? Like, we better just like, it's time for them to go. But the reality is, when you hear these stories, by the time it's got to the PR and person who's gone, listen, you're going to have to make a call here. That has been going on for months, if not years, of poor behavior because nobody's held them accountable because it's okay. Do you know what I mean? And so I think, so that's where I completely get what Matt is saying, because we have an issue with that. You know, we have an issue with the fact that people are, you know, running wild and being able to get away with it. But the challenge is not that they can get away with it, it's because they also have positions of influence and power, so they can rig the system and be safe in their righteousness in terms of how they feel about other. Do you know what I mean?
I want to make a quick point to that.
Yeah,
that is, and I'll step down from this issue. I'm not interested in being the perfect anti-racist. I am interested in peeling back white privilege so that, like James Parkson said, we can have some black good old boys and we can have some CEOs who are other than white, have a sexual indiscretion, have to step down. I want that even playing field. I want that opportunity, that bar to be crowded with faces, because think about it this way for a moment. How high is the black professional tax in, at least in America? I can't speak to the UK. I don't hire people in the UK or EU, but in America, the tax is so high that if equality were really, if we were willing to make room at the bar, and I mean like dance bar, drinking bar, whatever you want to call it, at the opportunity trough, I wouldn't stand a chance at a job. Because I have no education, no credential. Exactly. No. Let's flip the conversation.
Oh, right. Okay.
If it were equal, if there were no systemic obstruction and the very high cost of black tax, a guy like me wouldn't stand a chance. I have no credentials. I am so under credentialed compared to almost every black male and female professional I know that it makes me feel insecure on a daily basis. I don't put that much value in education. I have tons of experience, but that's my point, is if it were equal, there would be black good old boys or Hispanic good old boys. And there, you know, some progress, we see some of those characters there, but I want it to be so prevalent that we're all just good old boys and women. You know, I don't want it to be just white guys getting away with that. That's my goal. So I'm stepping down from that topic. I think I've made it very clear where I come from on that matter.
Yeah. No, but I think, you know what, it's a important almost conversation to have, because even in this like few minutes that we've been going, let me tell you, like, I wish I could get the conversation to this point. I got to work hard, right?
Yeah.
You know, I can't. I've got to like hold hands, literally, and what, you know, right?
No, is that a British thing, or is it?
Listen, I'm starting to think it is, but maybe I'm overgeneralizing. But then somebody here put in the who was it? I can't see. Unfortunately, I don't know who this is. Right, look. Yes. Oh, isn't it?
Oh, I don't know. Probably someone.
Well, right? I think it's a politeness. It's I think you have to give that there is a certain several hundred years of decorum on the British side that Americans have never had. Colonials have never had. But Matt, what do you think? Do you understand my position of if the life were equal? Because I've been acutely aware since the moment I started at 16 in IT. Acutely aware that if I had brown skin or a different gender, or I wasn't clearly a deep-voiced, cute, baby-faced white male, I would not have received an offer to interview at the first company that hired me with my first interview.
Yeah, there's no denying the privilege. To me, that's the privilege part of it. It could be white privilege. Some people have other privilege. The thing that is important to me with when we're talking about, again, the systemic aspect of it, is it's possible to change. It's unlikely, but it's possible to keep the same infrastructure and leadership that we have and fix the problem. Now, it's not going to happen, but it's possible to do it. So it doesn't have to be black people leading the charge on this, although certainly they're going to. And the thing that I want to get to is equality. So where I can say the same exact thing that you say, Shereen, and we're going to get the same exact response to it. And that could be whether it's I'm black, I'm white and you're black, or whether I'm just a nobody and there's a high influencer, whether it's an Instagram, a celebrity, whatever that is. You always see that in the movies and in comedy. Like, I just said that. You know, why is it different when you said it than when I said it?
Yeah,
so,
and I think well, I was just going to say that, like, when I talk, I guess, about what drives me for lots of different reasons, but fundamentally I always talk about, you know, like the basic human rights, like for everybody, like literally. So it's probably the only time you'll hear me to say all, right? Because, you know, I'm not here for all lives bloody matter. Like, I'm not here for that. But, you know, the only time you hear me say all, it's a human rights thing, because all I say is, look, there are so many things, but particularly in this race issue, is I want people to have the equal chance to succeed or to fail, and not have their skin color a factor of the success or the failure. That's it for me. Because, like, listen, we can all, I'm not shit hot in everything. We are not all shit hot, and we're not. So that becomes immaterial, because, you know what, if we're not good enough, or we're not, you know, we're not wide in the way to, that's fine. But not have skin color as a determinant of that. And I think sometimes
those are noble goals. Those are,
you know what I mean?
goals.
I feel like it gets lost when people start kind of almost like the you know, we have a bit of a backlash here in the UK, and, you know, people are listening from the UK can correct me, but where it's almost a bit like, you know, you black people, you've been talking about this for, like, you know, 3-4 months. Yeah, I know George Floyd died.
That triggered me. That didn't trigger you.
Oh, Erik, listen, I got in here, right? I tell you, I got things that that do make me cry some points, but you know what I mean, in terms of what I get
go through my head. I would just lose my
But Shereen, on the flip side, I joined in a conversation. Apparently on the same team, we're all looking for the same goal, and I got called. I think I shared this message with you. I mean, I got the cancel police. What is this white boy talking about? Joining this conversation, stay in your lane, and hunt. You know, the hunty thing that was. It just.
I think it's.
Yeah, I've got a white privilege comment I want to make real fast there, which is that I made
white privilege comment. Make it, Erik.
Sometimes as an ally, I've made a point that either wasn't perfectly clear, or it's like my correction of you. It wasn't intended as that. It was, I wanted to kind of understand a boundary. But sometimes you make a mistake. You say something. I make post-racial statements sometimes because I believe we can make change. So I've got this big optimism, and I'll make something knowing full well that there's this whole white supremacy battle has to be fought, and I'll get jumped on. And my response is not to defend myself. My response is 199 years and 8 more months of not saying anything. Because as an American, how do you think we've gotten this far with post-Civil War, you know, Jim Crow, people being quiet, having to reserve their opinions, not having a voice in the matter? So, you know, Matt, I understand that from our privilege, when we are attacked, we defend. We do not have the right to supplicate. We do not have the right to say, I'm sorry. You're a wonderful person, Matt. How could I say anything nasty about you? But this is what, if you observe American black culture, has had to do every day, multiple times a day, to get through jobs, to get through culture. And so we need to look at the people that we're trying to, you know, make our equals, and we need to act equally. And so I'm trying not to respond to those attacks. I try not to trigger them, but we need to be mindful of the fact that our privilege is under attack, not our character.
Well, nobody knows. I mean, these people don't know me. They just assume that I have privilege, and I'm not going to deny that I have privilege. But the conversation's not going to move forward, and we're not going to get where we need to do without people like us joining the conversation and also leading the charge. Because
so
if we're the problem, we got to be the solution too.
Yeah. I'm not saying that we can't defend ourselves, but defend the idea, not the ad hominem, right? Defend not our character winning. Because I want to win. I'm a winner. I'm aggressive. I'm competitive. And in this way, I've had to dial that way back down. And yeah.
Yeah, I just was trying to join the conversation. I didn't get defensive about what they're saying about me. But again, to the point, if we're on the same team and saying the same thing, there shouldn't be a lot of arguing about that stuff. That's
who certifies the badge that we're on the team, though? Where do we get the badge? It says I'm a team member. I'm an ally. I mean, how much of an ally am I? And we have to show it over again, right?
Well,
Shereen,
I
do you
don't.
have any advice on how we can get a badge that says I'm an ally?
I
You can
can't give
trust
you.
what I say.
Listen, everyone knows I'm stingy with my gold stars. I don't give gold stars out to anybody. But I'm equal opportunities in my stinginess.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I ain't giving out shit in the nicest way to even a lot of people, because I just feel like it's so early, and I'm being facetious, but it's so. I think there's a couple of things. Like, Matt, I completely hear what you're saying. Like, I hear you, and you know how I feel about this, because I've just said to you, like, how many times I've said, look, don't take it personal. Just like in the grand scheme, it's not important,
No,
it's not important. And also, I know that I have days when I'm like the most patient, and like somebody says something, and I'm like, why do you think that? And then I'm like other days, and I'm just like, just fuck off. Do you know what I mean? Right. So
It's
so,
like, let's fight. Let's fight.
right.
Let's
So
fight.
and so I'm very. So I've had to do a lot of work on myself to recognize that not everybody who says something in a way that I didn't receive it is attacking me. But what I've recognized is that it's a bit like a pressure cooker, because I've had that when people did mean that and I said nothing. Do you know what I
How do
mean?
you
And
tell
I
the difference? How do you tell
right,
the
right.
difference,
Do you know what I
Shereen?
mean? And
Where
it's a
how
you can't.
exhausting must it be to sit there and have to sort this
Oh my
out
God, of course,
and have
because
to
we're
say, is
always
this person
work
demeaning
it
me? Is
out.
this person
Right.
hurting me? Is this person belittling me for their own pleasure? Or did they just say something that they didn't think would affect me?
Well, they just
Correct.
also want to say what it's like it's the pile on. Like these people are saying it. If I join them in saying it, then I'm supporting the cause. I just want to address one thing that Erik said, and I'm on the team. I don't care who says I'm on the team. I'm on the team. I'm here to help end racism, to bring equality to everything. So I'm on the team. And again, it doesn't matter if you tell me I'm on the team. I don't need a badge for it. I don't need any congratulations for it. But whether you like it or not, I'm gonna do what I can to help. Now, if I'm doing something wrong that isn't furthering the cause and moving forward, then I'm all ears, because I want to know what I'm doing wrong.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people within the anti-racism and equality that are doing wrong on a daily basis that set us back, it sets the movement back. And that's part of the problem. The biggest part of the problem for me is, the infighting. Right. So it's, I don't know how you change that. But again, having these conversations. And
when you say infighting, Matt, what are you specifically? Give me an example of like what you're.
Well, if if the people who are defending the use of the N-word,
right,
and they're black.
Oh my God!
And they're using it.
Listen. Right, because
Well,
you see me jump off a cliff online, right? Because somebody had the cheeks.
20 years ago, I would have punched you in the face for calling me a queer. 20 years ago, I would have punched you in the face for calling me a queer.
Bad. It's not as bad, and I'll tell you why. There's a really good comedy clip with John Mulaney, and someone was saying something was like, well, that's just as bad. And he goes, it's not as bad. You want to know how I know it's not as bad? Because I just called you a queer, and I won't even say the N-word. That's how you know it's not as bad.
Yeah,
so I'm not
nowhere near as bad, because I'd say the exact same thing. I would never say So
no, but you're right, because, and I think it's such a hard, because on one hand, like, and because I'm going to address this because I can, like, some, let me address the black thing, and let some other people who are back kind of contribute here. Is when you know that your position is not equal in society, and basically you're on your own. And when I say on your own, like, we don't feel that we have other black people, plural as big as you want or not, who can help affect the change to make us equal, right? So you're surviving, and you're thinking you're it. So this is
that's such
like
a desperate scenario. It's so hard
right,
to hear that described.
Yeah. But let me tell you. So that's it. So every day you're kind of in this space, right? And then there's a code that says even when black people do silly things, fuck up, come correct, like, we cannot harm one another because we are so harmed by society. So when you talk about the infighting, Matt, you're absolutely right, because there's times when I have seen other Black people say things that I just think is just as ignorant. And I'm going to use the word ignorant. I'm very clear about what racism is and isn't, right? So I use the term ignorant deliberately.
Naive, also naive.
Yeah, or just from a place of like not having the knowledge and the understanding because they haven't done the work.
Yeah, got
Yeah,
it.
do you know what I
Ignorant is
mean?
a good word. It's
Yeah, do you know what I mean?
insulting. It's insulting
Yeah,
on the street in America, but it has a purpose. It
but
works.
do you know what I mean in that?
Yeah, yeah.
Just not having done the work, right? And I just want to like go, come on, But I feel like I can't because of the fact that, to your point, we can't be fighting each other when we are living in a society that right now wants us to go back to the cotton fields and shut up.
Well,
Do you
but
know what I mean?
if we make it such an extreme, where anybody watching Lovecraft Country,
Oh.
one black woman hired in a department store creates a little bit of envy in another character. It's a story in a great show. Loving it. I'm married to a film critic, so I have to talk about this
What's it
stuff.
called?
Yeah,
What?
Lovecraft Country on
Yeah, I
Lovecraft
think
HBO.
it's been
Country.
trending.
Okay.
There's a lot of
Okay.
good press about
Oh,
it.
is it?
Amazing.
Okay. I'll
So,
check it out.
system is really important to me because I know as a big systems guy that we can change white supremacy and we can change the system by opening up privilege, by releasing our death grip on white supremacy and white privilege. So that sounds really, really easy, but it's as simple as me actively hiring, actively funding Black founders, Black entrepreneurs. I think the answer is generational wealth. And so if we look at the condition of post-slavery descendants having not even having shoes to pass down, and you think about the gap between privilege and no privilege, we call white privilege or not, Matt, for whatever comfort or label, but privilege and absolutely negative privilege, then the thing that we need to restore in America, I can't solve racism, but I can absolutely disproportionately create Black generational wealth. I absolutely can. And as an ally, I can take money from my next exit and put 50% of it towards being the first check writer, the friends and family round for 50 or 100 other entrepreneurs who are other than white male. That's something I'm going to do, whether we're on this podcast or not,
But
because it's something I can do.
How does that solve racism and equality?
It doesn't. I don't need to solve racism. Racism isn't the problem that's affecting people heavily in America. The big systemic issue we have is white supremacy. And we can talk about justice.
But are we not talking about the same thing? Because the whole point of racism is about why do you think it's a different thing? Why do you
Because
think it's different?
racism is something we're gonna have for a long time. White supremacy is a system of power. It is white power and the suppression of Black power in America. That's my belief. That was originally the comment. So if you've done any reading of Black authors, I'm a sycophant to James Baldwin and a lot of his early writings and later writings. So if you've done any of that, then you know where I'm coming from. I don't protest white guilt. I don't believe that there's this. I think we can attack white supremacy, put it in its place, and start systematically disbanding it by creating opportunities for folks to have. Let's use Matt. I don't know your background, but I'm a gay man. I never expected in my lifetime to have the right to marry my husband, who I'm married to. Been with him 25 years since I was 23 years old. We have a son, 21 years old. Never anticipated I would have the legal right to adopt a child because only a gay man would adopt a child for pedophilia and corrupting and all that bullshit. I'm such a better person as a dad. It's no joke. But white supremacy blocks access to that opportunity. We can't give equal rights to Black folk in this country. We can't, but we can take our death grip off the privilege and allow them to fight equally for it. And
why can't we give equal rights?
Because we can't give. We can't give it. We can give them the wealth, the access to the things. They can take it. They can take the wealth. They can build it. They don't need us to give them money. They need opportunity to be able to go make it themselves, make generational wealth. And just like queer and gay, lesbian people did, we got our right to marry in a 40 years, because we're white men, white women predominantly, who have access to wealth and power. Prop 8 in California, it was all about money. We raised millions, hundreds of millions of dollars for gay rights and Equal Marriage Act. Okay, so if we are able to build the same type of system where there's more Black generational wealth, that money can then go overturn the policies and the laws in the states that we need to really make it a fair country. I don't have a different agenda. I don't have a different thing. I just think that if we make room at the bar, make room at the opportunity trough, then things will eventually equal out. That's my theory. Change my mind.
Matt, because I got things to say, but I'm going to let you talk first before I jump in. So you go talk first.
Yeah, so a lot to unpack there.
Unpack it.
Yeah, we know we're doing it. We're doing it.
So I'll just address the gay aspect of it. I was actually in Ireland when Ireland was the first country to pass gay marriage as a whole country. I was at one of the first gay weddings in Texas. Why do you think that we've evolved to that? I don't think it's money. I think it's that it was inevitable, and it's just enough. There's no argument against it. That's my feeling, but I don't know. How
do we go from being beaten up in the alleys in the 80s and stalked on the streets in the 90s to being legally married because of social tolerance?
There's still people being beat up.
Exactly. So the law doesn't change people's opinions. The law changes because of influence, money, and power.
I would argue that people who have the money and the influence and the power are more against it than they are for it. So how did it happen?
Well, that's the privilege issue, right? We make more room and we put some money on the side that's anti-supremacist, and we change the dialogue. Anyway, yeah.
Okay, so I also, with regards to white supremacy, it's I think that it's a tough way to understand. Are there more of them now, or are they just feel like it's okay to talk about it because of the last 4 years?
It's hard. I look, in my mind, I just think a lot of this has always been here. Do you know what I mean? Not actively. So I'm not, because I genuinely don't believe like white people go to bed at night going, oh yeah, I'm going to wake up tomorrow morning and make sure that I stick it to a black person. Like, not from that point of view. But what I think has changed the dynamic is when we stayed in our lane as black people, so we were happy to play basketball, we were happy to, toe the line and just kind of push and be the minority hire and go for the diversity program over here. That really didn't disrupt anything, right? Until we started pushing back and saying enough is enough for lots of different reasons. And this, the George Floyd thing wasn't a new movement, but I think it amplified what was already bubbling under the surface. At least if I think for myself, right? There's, I didn't wake up one morning with brand new thoughts about how I felt oppressed. It was always there. But what I kidded myself, and I'm somebody who has done very well professionally, and I've been the one that people have said, oh my goodness, Shereen, if all black people were like you, I would have more black friends. Do you know what I mean? Because they felt so safe.
Ouch.
When I'm trying to
so your success equated to being a better friend. I'm just curious where that.
Just the fact that we're not so terrible after all. It's just like I would have more black friends, Shereen, if I I think there's one black guy in my gym. Like I'm not, you kind of get into all of that bullshit. But then when you get to the point of recognizing that actually society hasn't moved on, because to your point, Matt, Erik, the people clinging so hard to the privilege that they don't want to let it go.
Grip. It's a death grip.
It's the death grip. And that's the bit when you go, okay, you may not be not racist, but you can't get to anti-racist because you're not willing to sacrifice the privilege, the power, and the influence that you're given just because of the color of your skin. That's what I think is fundamentally different. So it's not necessarily it's not a zero-sum game. It's not
exactly, and it's a Western value system.
Right, just
break
because
it
you're
down.
black, it's because I do not want to give up. I do not want you to get better treatment than me. And what we're saying is, listen, we got so far to go, right, in terms of being better. We just want to get to the same as
equal would be a great place to arrive at.
You understand what I'm saying? Do you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah. That's exactly what I'm talking about.
That's what I think is the. That's what I think is the. Do you understand what I'm saying? That's what I think is the difference. It's yes that they're black. It's almost like, but I'm not willing to sacrifice anything to give them that because I'm not privileged. And then you get into the whole, I haven't had a privileged life. I haven't had.
Matt, I'm going to give you 5 minutes. I just want to respond to this since we're here and we're talking about it. Imagine if you didn't have to have the black tax to be a professional in America.
When you say the black, Erik, what do you mean by the black
degree, overqualified for everything.
Yes.
7 different credentials on volunteers. I mean, look at any black woman's profile on LinkedIn. And tell me, and then look at an older white male.
So we got to come like we're starting in building a new rocket ship in our back garden just to prove that we could.
That you can change. Exactly my point. So imagine living in a post-white supremacist America or world. It's really, to me, it is white supremacy in America that I'm focused on. And that is that imagine not having to compete that hard. Imagine what life would be like. That's equal. Where I have to actually step my game up, when I have to go get a master's degree to compete with my colleagues, or a doctorate to compete with my colleagues, the way that an African American or a black person in America would have to.
Like 110%. However, you still need the systems to change, because it isn't enough just to pump money and say, like, I completely get generational wealth. I get the economic disempowerment, but if we don't change the systems, the very people who have got their death grip on these systems, who can influence that, to your point, they can change the rules again. So it's almost like it's the leaky bucket, because what you're talking about is you're putting in the bucket.
Politics changes laws. Laws change policy. Policy change behavior.
Well, white supremacists don't care about laws.
Oh.
Like, here's the thing. This is why I disagree that white supremacy is the number one issue. Is I'm a white Jewish male. They hate me as much as they hate Shereen. And so we can get rid of every single white supremacist and there'd still be a tremendous racism problem in the US. Exactly. I mean, huge.
Exactly. So not arguing that.
Yeah. So to me, that is, I think it's a sense of, they just feel more comfortable about it. And people, and that's part of why the punishment, what I say is people, it could be just not letting them feel comfortable about using the N-word, or not letting them feel comfortable about that everyone shouldn't be equal. And so it's, to me, that's what the problem is. And I'll keep going back to you can call it punishment or whatever you want. People do things that they get away with until they can't get away with it. They always say, how long can I, what can I do? I can rob a bank. Okay, well, I got a year in prison, but I got $1 million. I took steroids in baseball, but I got $100 million contract. So and I'm not for capital punishment, but imagine if you stole a pack of gum from a grocery store and I cut off your arm, and now who's going to start stealing packs of groceries? So again, I'm not for capital punishment, but I'm just for doing enough. And there's a lot of stuff you can do that will stop people from doing illegal things. It'll stop people from saying and being okay with racist stuff. And then the other part is, and Shereen, it was maybe on one of your LinkedIn posts, there's so many people who feel like we do who can't speak their mind for whatever reason it is. And that's another huge problem.
Heteronormative feminism taught me as a child not to speak up for other people. I grew up in Berkeley, Oakland, and I was told not to do it. And it kept me out of the dialogue, out of this dialogue publicly for way too long, because I misunderstood the message. It wasn't well received. It wasn't well delivered. I think anybody who grew up in the 70s and 80s with a feminist mother will know what I'm talking about. You don't speak for other people. And then I watched black men getting gunned down, the systemic oppression of police and their activities against black men. And how could my black friends trust me? when I'm not out there marching with them, when I'm not out there. I still don't march them, but I don't stand for that anymore. I don't justify it.
Well,
I don't want to think that white supremacy is a bunch of Ku Klux Klan wearing
Yeah.
wearing
It's not.
people.
No.
It is the power system. And I need to make this point. I hope I can make it succinctly. My point about queer gay rights and law and generational wealth, why they're tied together, is because no one loved me. I didn't make it to prime. My representation didn't make it to primetime TV because suddenly people loved me or there was punishment or there was anything else. It was because there were laws put into place. Civil Rights Act in 1964 barely gets things going. Women and men couldn't interracially marry until a couple years before I was born. There are so many laws that need to be enacted to make this cultural change, but we're busy stuck on the thing. Well, aren't they Americans? Aren't they covered under this? No, we need to systematically, maybe to your point, Matt, we need to make punishment laws that make behavior very, very clear.
I mean, we break laws every day. I break a law probably every day of my life.
Yeah,
I do. And I'll get away with it.
I drive too fast.
I probably did today.
Look, for those two, it's not the black woman. I just want to the black woman saying nothing.
So if think about the laws of marriage, there was that lady in Kentucky who wouldn't sign the gay certificate.
Yeah,
There's the cake, but there was no consequence for it. That now they become lawmakers. They run, and the people who agree with them. I mean, there's people who still want to. It's a law. It's in the it's our right, and there are people who still want it who think that Roe versus Wade is going to get overturned.
Exactly.
Well, can I just jump in?
Power law. Go ahead, Shereen. Yeah.
However, what I will say is we do have laws, right? So we have laws about not discriminating. I'm going to use the UK as an example. Not discriminated against people with protected characteristics. So you have the similar thing, right? Race, religion, blah 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 blah. However, going back to the point, and this is where it is all connected, going back to the point about white supremacy is, okay, you can't discriminate against somebody who is of a different religion, of a different race, but you can build a whole business that's 100% white and nobody will bat an eyelid.
But we all discriminate. There's no way to not discriminate.
Tax the shit out of that business.
Yeah.
But that's my point.
Tax the shit out of that business.
So we've got these laws that, in theory, don't worry. How many times have you heard me swear? People are used to it. I'm trying to do better.
I'm not using the F word. I haven't used the F word yet.
I did in the first 5 minutes. I think I swore 10 minutes. Possibly.
A well-placed F-bomb is good. I'm watching a show on Netflix called Coach. And they just are dropping F-bombs every second just because they can. And
I'm trying to do better. Do you know how many people come for me for my swearing? There's like, Shereen, you're so much better if you didn't swear so much. I'm like, I know. But my point is, so we've got these laws to protect it, but it doesn't ever help the advancement because it's still going back to the point about being locked out. As Black people, we are still locked out, and we can be legitimately locked out of positions of power, of influence. We can legitimately not be allowed to progress within an organization. So we are allowed to be a frontline employee. Everyone, if we're cleaners, we're receptionists, we're, frontline operators, but we cannot be managers, heads of departments. So we have to be less and less, and we have to be okay with that. And in the UK, the other dynamic we have is when people say, yeah, but the UK is more tolerant and it's because we've got all these multiculturals, that, all the rest of it. But the other thing is that even when it comes to Britishness, on the top of the pyramid in the UK, it's white British, right? Because
Welsh probably would, and then there's the whole ranking of Cornish, York.
So even I am British. I have a white British person right next to me, but society in the UK rates them higher than me because they are white. This is nothing to do about immigration. This is just about the reality of what we're living in. And so we have the laws that protect people being discriminated against. We have the laws that says, but even if we enforce it, even if there's punishment, but going back to Matt's point, the punishment isn't really punishment. What is the punishment for an organization that discriminates against Black people who's racist?
The issue is these rules are written by white people for white people so that they can navigate around these issues and placate black population. We need more black lawmakers. We need more black laws. We need laws that have teeth.
But that goes back to the systems, though. That's the systems, though, isn't it, Eric? Which is what Matt was saying. It's the systems bit. So it isn't enough just to put money into generational wealth if we're not looking at the infrastructure that runs society. Do you know what I mean?
That's what I see. Show that without the fuel going in, that we don't have the fire.
Money is the fuel,
and then the fire.
No, I get completely.
Okay, so
I want to share a story. I might have told Shereen this. I worked for a very large corporation, and I had some problems with someone who didn't report to me, but I supported, and she essentially just wasn't doing her job, and I reported her to HR. And there's such a fear of retaliation or this person going to sue you for being discriminatory. And so they would not fire her. And anyone would agree that she should have been fired. And the reason why they didn't, and I said this to HR, and in my conversation, is she was black and she was and she was over a certain age. So it's like those three things that they were so afraid of getting sued and getting looked at as something like that you left a terrible employee. I don't care what color she is. She was a terrible employee. As a salesperson, you should be able to fire someone if they're a terrible employee.
But that is exactly, and what I said I remember, because Matt and I had this conversation. Yes, you did tell me that, I remember. And what I said at the time is that is the consequence of what happens when you do not address the systemic inequalities, because we have then become the special cases. We have become the protected special cases. And what does that do? That breeds resentment. It breeds fear of
huge amount of resentment.
A huge amount, because Matt, what you're talking about there is you're going, I'm a manager. Right. No, but like Matt's like, I'm a manager, or somebody else is a manager, and this person is not performing. I want to be able to performance manage them, sack them, whatever it is, but I can't because, right? And that's the point, that we've put in all of these layers of things to never address the root cause of the issue, because that's a bit like trying to say to somebody like, here's somebody that we brought in under the diversity banner. Look, we've got 2 black people, we've got 1 brown person. Oh, can somebody find me a lesbian person? Where's
DEI makes me kind of nauseous. Right?
Do you know what I mean?
And I've been hiring diversity.
People that wear the what's the scarf that they wear? What's the scarf those women? All of that bullshit. All of that.
But Shereen, to the other side, you want people to do more. So in some ways, they have to kind of do that to get people. You don't want to token anything, a token interview, even as a white person.
No, but my point is around that, Matt, is that if you are not addressing the systemic issues, they become tokens.
Right.
But also, when they don't work out, somebody says, well, I gave the Asian person a go and they were shit, so I ain't doing that again. I gave the black person a shot, they were shit, so you wanted me to broaden and diversify.
So one person disqualifies the entire color for everybody in the future.
Because we haven't gone back. Why is there so many? And I always keep using the example of London being, almost half of the population of London is non-white. But you go into many organizations within London, and all of their head offices, a lot of their head offices, and then the more senior you go, are all white.
But
how does that make sense? You can't even use the, some people in like corner of Colwyn Bay in Wales can go, well, we haven't got no black people, so that's why we haven't got it. And I go, before coronavirus, I'll accept that, because there's no black people in your town. So do you know what? Carry on as you were. This ain't for you. But do you know what I mean? But there are other businesses who are operating in communities and other cultures around the world who still, you can go into South Africa, go to Kenya, and you have white entrepreneurs going in, building white leadership teams within, and not hiring local people. If that is not an example of systemic issues, and then you've got the black entrepreneur in their own country who cannot even get funding.
Can't get 50 cents from the bank. Can't get 50 cents from the bank. That's the
and influence and money. Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the, I really want to make this point. The black generational wealth that I'm talking about, whether you want to call it a hashtag or not, I had help becoming an entrepreneur. I had help. I didn't have a pool house to live in. I didn't have a wealthy parents. I have a drunk alcoholic dad. He would have been shot were he black with his first criminal offense. We had a long history of driving drunk and things. He just would have been shot if he were a black man. Put it that way. Police would not have liked him enough. But he survived his career and died at 64 alcoholism. So I had no money, nothing to come from. That's my privilege ranking, right? My foot race isn't as long or as short as some people's. Generational wealth means that you can originate power locally at the regional level, federal level. Look at what equality for marriage did. It is all money piped in at the local level, state level. All this has to happen. Georgia needs equality rules that are different than California, but the nation needs rules that actually have teeth. We're not going to get them because white people aren't going to give them. We're not going to have diversity and inclusion because white people aren't going to hire more people other unless they have to. I mean, Indian, sub-Asian.
So it's what you're saying. So Erik, is what you're saying is that we've got to generational wealth. So in essence, the only way to make progress is when we can do for ourselves. Is that your argument about generational wealth?
No, my swim lane is very much that with generational wealth, progress can be made resistant to white supremacy.
Right.
That if we have that progress can be made in lieu of correcting white supremacy. That's going to take a long time.
Erik, what if we took the top 50 billionaires and took all their money away and gave it to all black people? That's generational wealth, right?
Well, so let's break that down into two things. My heart is full of love and trust, but how does anybody know that? How do I as a country heal the history of slavery when I've done nothing, when nothing has really been done? We've given equal rights. Yeah, we had to give equal rights. We had to give 1964 Civil Rights Act. We had to make it legal to marry a black person if you're white in this country.
But Erik, you know what? But that's fundamentally that is the crux of my angst, I guess, when I sit myself there, because I say to myself, who are white people to gift us anything when we are all human beings? That's right, fundamentally.
It's an act of
do you know
trust.
What I mean?
It's a demonstration of trust in valuing you as an equal, and valuing you as an American means that it's not an apology like shit, we fucked up. It's more along the lines of you matter and you're important. And so some kind of act would make a big difference in that, but it's going to take generations to demonstrate trust and love. What Black generational wealth will do, we're not talking about taking people and giving them something. We're talking about giving them the opportunity to do the things that we do as white entrepreneurs every day. You invest in me, I will invest in 100 Black founders. I promise you that. So people who want to look at my startup, what I'm doing, invest in me, I will invest in change for the future. Those folks are then going to be able to write checks for them family members and their own family members. And over time, you have more wealth creation. That's a swim lane. It's not solving racism. It's not emptying the pockets of white supremacy.
Yeah, I like that phrase, Erik. I'm stealing that swim lane. Thank you.
Yeah, that's my swim lane.
Copyright. I like that phrase.
In that regard,
swim or slim?
Swim lane.
Swim lane.
Swim
okay.
lane. So, I mean, if you focus on an area where you can make change, then you can make change. Because the enormity of this problem is that why should I look at a Black person and feel anything different than when can I call you my brother or sister? When we love one another and we trust one another. So every day I get up and ask myself, what do I have to do to move that ball forward? I've failed, and I'll tell you, DEI isn't going to do it. I've tried for years to do DEI. I've run small companies. I don't attract DEI talent because they can go to Facebook or they can go, and so they have to.
We've got their own problems.
Well, but they have, you know what it is. It's like you want to work for a Facebook because that's witnessing their success. That's holding that witness. So
sorry, Erik, I'm just going to pause you 1 second. No, you're not. Sorry, look, and unfortunately, look, this is hiding you. Can you see this? Like, if you put your hands at the top, like, I'm so sorry, but I just want to show this just to read. So look, I'll just paraphrase it. We can take it off and stop hiding you. Right.
Yes, that is essentially it. That if we don't make room, I don't I believe.
Sorry, I don't know who this is. Apologies. It's the platform. It's not you. Sorry, I can't see your name.
That Black folks aren't asking for anything that they aren't already due. Let's be really, really clear. And so we're not trying to give them something to solve a problem. It's an ongoing relationship. But I don't think that I can give anything to anybody other than my love and my trust. I don't cross the street when I see a group of young black men walking at me. I don't clutch my purse. It's that type of anti-racist, trying to be aware of the respect you owe another human being that we all have to do. That's one person at a time. But laws and seeing all these shows on TV now that are all black cast with a token white actor, fucking love that. I never.
Well, I'm glad you do. Can you talk to the UK? Because we ain't feeling that. We don't like that.
Did you watch Black AF?
No, I didn't.
Really good. Really
yeah,
good. I never saw Blackish. But
anyway,
I didn't see that. No, I didn't. I
apologize, Matt. I really didn't want to battle you on anything. And
no, it's all good.
No.
Good.
It's all love. No. It's all. Listen, Matt's got thick skin anyway. Don't worry about it.
It's not.
He's all right.
Did you just call me fat? Is that what you're saying?
Thick skin. I said. I said thick skin. He's all right. He's all right.
I've got a few years and a few pounds on you, Matt. Don't worry. So
no, Matt, you don't.
Where do we go from here? What is it that we want? And what I want. What do you want, Matt? What do you want to come out of this conversation? What were your hopes?
I just want to be able to have more conversations. I mean, I could literally do this every day. I'll sit here. I will take an hour every day and talk about it, and my actions will be behind. So that's the other thing. It's very popular to say Black Lives Matter and to be a part of it.
Performative.
Right? And so again, some people can't. They just can't. You can't say what I can. I don't care. No one's going to do anything to me that's going to matter because I own my own company. If you don't feel the way I do, you're not going to work for my company.
Yeah.
And
exactly.
We're not going to get political. I hate Donald Trump. If every single Donald Trump supporter never gave me a penny, I'm going to be just fine. So I'm here to say what I think is on the right side of history. And if I'm feeling like I'm on the right side of history, I don't care. I'm going to say everything I have to say. And let's get other people into the conversation, specifically the people who feel otherwise, to understand why they feel that way. Because I have people in my family who feel a certain way. And I'm just trying to figure out, well, how did you get that way? Because you weren't taught it in anything I was taught. So where did you learn that? Where did you figure that that's okay? And I have friends who I've lost over comments they made that on the surface are like, it's not a big deal, but it's over and over and over again. And they don't believe it's wrong and they don't believe they're racist. And that's also part of the problem is like, you don't understand. I'm very self-aware of my faults. And so for me, I try and better them, but some of them, it's always going to be that way. And you just kind of have to take.
My husband's very aware of my faults.
Yeah. You got to take me for what I'm worth.
Yeah.
Right.
If you're racist, I'm not going to take you for what you're worth. If you're selfish, because I can be selfish. If you're, there's 100 things that a character flaws that I'll accept of you. But being racist isn't one of them, being anti, whatever it is.
You know what? And I know we so have to do this again because we've barely scratched the sides. I could be talking to you two till midnight. We'd have to bring popcorn, grape soda, because I don't drink beer. So it's got to be grape soda. Sorry, but that's what you got to bring me.
Yeah.
But one of the things I also just want to say, and we can talk about this another time, is the fact that, you know what, when racist people are overtly racist, that's really fucking easy. Right?
But how do you change it?
It's no, because honestly, cross the road. Do you know what I mean? They'll sleep it off and in the morning they'll probably forgotten and they'll do it over again. It's when you've got people who claim they're not racist, but also are resisting doing anything to improve equality for Black people or other marginalized groups who want to go right, because they don't even see, back to what you said there, Matt, they don't even see that they're part of the problem. And they see themselves as.
Well, what about my grandfather? He came to this country with nothing. He came to this country with nothing.
Oh,
and he made his. The what about crowd? Right. Oh, I love the what about crowd.
Yeah, we love to what about.
Yeah, I want people to call me out on my BS. That's because I live by the golden rule. I'm very harsh, but I'm fair. If I do something wrong, then tell me about it. Because otherwise, how am I going to know that it's wrong? And I do stuff wrong all the time. I have opinions on racism and all that are probably completely out of whack. And you know, I don't want to say anything that's.
Well, Matt, you're thinking about it. You're thinking about it. You're working with it, and
you've got it. And that's why, and that's why I said, you know, like jokingly, when I finished talking to Matt, I was like, Matt, like some of the things you say, like, no, but I love you for it because I know. Listen, I know where you're trying to get to, and I know you're on the team, but that's what I love, and it's the fact that you can disagree and go, no, that ain't it, or. You know, like if I think he's taking something too seriously, I'd be like, Matt, just forget about it. Listen, in the grand scheme of things, let's go off. We've got bigger fish to fry.
Oh, yeah, agreed.
You're making an influence. You're using your platform for good. You're speaking out when there's a lot of people who lurk and do not say anything. So there are people who have the same privilege that the three of us have because we can say whatever we want. We run our own companies. We don't answer to anybody other than our own conscience, right? About what we have the three of us are connected with the privilege inherently just in that, if we're going to use that word, right? But there are still plenty of people who have platforms, who have positions of influence, power, and who can make material changes to a bigger degree than the three of us combined. And they're still sitting there quiet, sipping their cup of tea, hoping that all this black talk will stop.
Well, they don't want to do it. Can you imagine, and you're big on LinkedIn, can you imagine if every post you see that talks about how you should be engaging and how you can get more followers and how you can market this was a anti-racism or a Black Lives Matter post? If every single one of them was instead of that.
Okay.
Yeah,
do you know what I mean? But
they're not. They can do that. It doesn't cost them anything.
Oh, but they won't. But or some of them will, but they will because they realize it's trending and they realize they can go and get like 3,000 followers in like 5 minutes if they go and post something. So that's like the flip side.
That window is closing on the Black Lives Matter being the hot thing, on LinkedIn being the hot thing, and so the people like us who are going to be still there when it's done.
Like, hello.
You need to come join the revolution. Like I sent an email to Dan Price. I'm not sure if you know who he is. Gravity Payments. Yeah. Very, he's he put minimum wage at his company at 70,000. I sent him
yes.
Yeah, I sent him a message. I said, I want to be part of your revolution. Let's go.
Yeah.
And nobody cares what I have to say today. Yeah. But they will tomorrow or maybe the next day.
Word. Listen. Nobody cares what I was saying 3 months ago, Matt, but they started to care now. Yeah. What's she saying? Well, listen, I could talk to you two forever, so hopefully we can do this again. I haven't put you off.
Anytime.
I have so much love and respect for you both. Thank you so much for talking and, just putting your head above the parapet. I like that. I like people.
I want to close with one thing, Shereen.
Yeah, no, I will give you both time to close. I'm just saying my little bit before I concede the floor to you both. I appreciate it. And I think there's a lot of people who I hope when they see this in the replay, and I'll put it on my YouTube video, who can just kind of see like that there are people out there who may not look like you, who may not are from your community, who are still trying to push the envelope with this and basically saying enough is enough. And this is what we need, like multiplied, square root times, the power, whatever. This is what we need. You're the maths guy, Erik, with your AI stuff, but this is kind of what okay, we can skip that bit, but this is kind of what we need. So I'm hoping that for everybody else who listens, they just found it gratifying just to kind of see this conversation out here in the open, because instead of behind closed doors and everybody only giving Twitter fingers, right, typing and not bringing this sort of conversation to life in beautiful high definition Technicolor. So thank you both, and then I'll let you close off.
Go ahead, Matt.
Erik, you can go, and then we can go.
Okay, I'll go. Whatever. So it's really important to all of us as human beings. We understand that there are ideas and there are experiences, and ideas are the things that we can talk about. Hello, ideas are the things that we can talk about. It's all right. It's mama time. I'm assuming that's your offspring.
Yes.
You haven't been introduced. I'm Erik.
I don't know. It's some random child that's coming to my house.
We need color. We need some color in that hair.
So we're ideas, but we're also people. So as we explore this, if we could just find a little bit more room for love and benefit of the doubt. I can't ask this of any person of color to have more patience with anybody, but for white folks in particular, I can. We need to be more patient, more trusting, and open to love. We're going to get it back if we give it. The second thing is ideas are powerful. There's no new idea in this conversation. The same question people were asking 50, 60, 100 years ago. Why can we look at a black person and not see my son? When George Floyd was being kneeled on, all I could see was my son under that cop's knee. Why do we feel differently when we see a black life at risk or a black life on the street? Why do we? Ask yourself, white folks who are watching this, why do we do it? And then go and place your cherished loved ones in the same scenarios. Do it every day. Do it like a fucking pinwheel all day long. Mom, grandma, Stephon Clark, that's my husband. All these things. He's holding his phone. He was holding a weapon. Put those people in that position and see how you feel day after day. You want to get over your trust, put your loved ones where black people are every day, and things will start to change.
Okay. Thank you, Erik.
Yeah, so my feeling is that on the surface, everything that we're talking about, there is no other side where you can argue that it's okay.
Yeah.
Now people do that, but there's no other side. It's black and white. This is wrong. We need to change it. And so, what I feel is that, if we can just get the people to start having the conversation, then I think we'll get to the place that we need to go to. Colin Kaepernick, there's a lot of things Colin does that I am not a big fan of, but the quote he had with Nike, believe in something, even if it means sacrificing everything. I'm here for the greater good. And I'm not even talking about race. It's the greater good. Everything I do is for the greater good. If you tell me that my company, when I'm $1 billion company, is going to get taxed 40%, okay, great. If it can help out the greater good, then I'm all for it. And so, to me, that's the most important thing. And the last thing I'll say is with the All Lives Matter people, and look, some of these people who died were not good people, right? They did bad stuff, but their punishment should not have been a death sentence. They should have, like everyone else, had the opportunity to face whatever it is they had to face. And you can make all the excuses in the world of why that happened, but there's really not an argument for the fact that that person didn't shoot that guy 7 times in the back because of who he was. So, once we can agree on that, then we can figure out how to move forward from it. My opinion. It's like, did you need to shoot someone 27 times? I mean, in what world do you need to shoot someone 27 times? It doesn't matter what. That's like the stuff you see in the movies. Oh, I wanted to make sure they were dead. No. So, to me, that is the real problem. It's like the people are trying to say, I'm not racist, but this, like the whataboutism is just a huge problem from what I see in the white people.
What about black on black crime? What about the fact that you're from single parent homes?
It's all true.
It disqualifies any conversation. As soon as you pull a what about, then the conversation's over at that point.
The last thing I want to end on is I'm a big believer in peaceful. Like, let's forget about the peaceful protest and the argument about that. Even on my wall, on my comments, I have friends who immediately go to name calling. And once you start name calling and being violent about things, you've lost the ability to have a conversation from and get to the common ground. So you can agree exactly what I'm saying, but there's got to be a way to say it that's okay. And even from my point of view, my friends who say it a certain way, it's not tolerated. It gets deleted from it. And I send them a message, say, look, we can't, I agree with you, but we can't talk that way because that's not going to further the conversation.
Right. Well, thank you both. And so, hopefully I haven't put you off from doing this again. I was so going to bring you back, of course.
Love it.
I was so going to bring you back, of course. And so, just thank you. And everybody, thank you for joining in. I'm so sorry I rubbish with the comments. You know what I'm like. But we got into it. Forgive me. Sorry. And we'll talk again. Matt, I'm doing your panel for you on
next week.
So I'm doing I'm doing panel. Just drop it when you drop it in the comments here for people to know it's because it's free, isn't it?
It's free. It's going to be helping people. helping people network on LinkedIn. And if you're open to work and looking for work, it'll help you guys find the job. We're trying to get everyone back to work.
Yeah, anybody linking into me, please link into me. I'd love to follow you. Just let me know you're there if I'm not already following you. I learn every day from this audience, and thank you to, pretty much everybody out there who's doing it and speaking their truth, because up until May of this year, as a gay, white, male ally, I had no idea what any of you all were thinking. Now you're telling me. So huge kudos to everybody there for sharing their experience and their reality, because we don't know, as a white male, how am I going to learn if you don't tell me? So please don't stop telling us your experience.
I'll keep talking, Eric. I'm here every day talking.
That's the good thing and the bad thing, going back to the white supremacy. You don't know. We didn't know these people felt this way. And it's like,
we got to stop at some point, Matt.
Yeah,
we got to stop at some point. We can reschedule. I'm totally down.
It's lunchtime here.
Yeah.
Well,
I can talk for a week.
It's evening for me. Look at my face. Look at that. Like diet. So, thank you so much, guys. Thank you.
Right,
so I'm gonna stop the broadcast. There we go.
There we go. That was